Hey guys, Kevin here with etrailer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Rear Anti-Sway Bar here on our 2015 Tiffin Allegro open road motorhome. So rear anti-sway bars are going to give you a much more comfortable ride. The way that they work is that whenever you're starting to make that turn, maybe you have some wind because you're out driving on the highway, maybe you're passing a semi and that's starting to kind of push you one way. What this does is it kind of yanks back down on that frame, because as you're getting kind of pushed to that side of your frame's kind of lifting up, and then you're losing traction with your tires. So what this does is it pulls it back down, keeps you nice and straight. That way you have more contact with the road. You can make those turns a whole lot easier and kind of deal with all those crosswinds. This anti-sway bar and its brackets are all made with a 4140 chromoly steel, so you know it's going to hold up. The bushings are polyurethane, and those are going to be maintenance free. You're not going to have to get down here and lube anything up. It's all going to be good to go. Each one of these sway bars has a specific fit, and that's going to depend on the engine type and the chassis. So we're going to need to know the year of your chassis, and then also whether or not you have a V8 or a V10 engine. And then there are a couple other little details depending on the sway bar. Some year makes, certain years just have different things kind of in the way. So Roadmaster does have little one-offs where you might have to get a special bracket or some other kind of thing just to make sure that it actually fits on here and doesn't get in the way of anything else on your motorhome. If you have any questions, need help finding the correct fit for your motorhome, then go ahead and reach out to us via the Ask the Experts link, and I or one of my coworkers will help find the correct fit for you. So now we're going to go over our bump course just to kind of give a little bit of a view down below and just show you how much it kind of wobbles back and forth as you're hitting bumps. So I've driven quite a few of these, and this one definitely feels kind of the worst. Just even pulling it around to the back of our lot here, it was really kind of wobbling back and forth, and it's not too windy today. But if you're up on the highway, you're going really fast. I mean, I'm going 10 miles an hour. If you're going 60 miles an hour on the highway, this thing's going to be all over the road. You're going to be fighting any high winds, or if a semi comes by you. As I start making turns and straighten out, we're getting a lot of side-to-side action here. The steering itself isn't too bad. It's not trying to pull me one way or another. But just the side-to-side is really just super noticeable with this motorhome. As far as installation goes, this can be quite difficult. You are going to need some big wrenches and some big sockets to really get some of these U-bolts off. These can get kind of seized up with rust over time. So the older your motorhome is, the more challenging it probably will be. Overall though, concept-wise, it is super easy. You're only removing a couple of bolts and nuts and then just putting on some brackets and slipping it up into place. I definitely recommend having a couple other people with you to kind of help lift everything in place. It'll make it way easier for you. So we're just behind our rear axle. I'm going to be putting on these B734 brackets to start. And to do that, you're going to have to first remove two factory bolts that are up in the frame. So we got two bolts right here with a nut on the other side. I've already broken this one loose. I'm about to break this one loose. It's kind of hard to get in here with a socket just because it's pretty tight. You could probably get it from this side. I'm just using a regular wrench and breaking it loose though on our head right here. So we'll go ahead and pop that off now. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put those bolts back in with our bracket in place. So we can go ahead and slip the bracket up, put our bolts in. It's a little tight with the leaf springs in the way, so you may have to kind of fight it just a bit. So there wasn't enough clearance for us to get that bolt in with the axles kind of being lifted up by the lifts we have here. So I've lowered it down. I've put some jacks at the frame in the back and kind of lifted it up so that we have a little bit of space between our frame and then our wheel. So I got that wheel to where it's fully dropped down. That pulled our leaf spring down, and now I'm going to try and get that bracket in over top of the leaf spring so it's not in our way. Now that we've got that in there hand tight, we can just go ahead and take a wrench and tighten it down and then torque it down to the specifications listed in your instructions. So next we're going to go ahead and take off our U-bolt nuts. I've already gone ahead and sprayed some penetrating oil on here to kind of try and clean these up because these are pretty rusted up. You may want to do that a few times, kind of let it really kind of clean up. And then definitely wear some safety glasses while you break these off, because they're definitely going to shoot out a lot of rust at us. Go ahead and... So now we have our plate that we're going to tie in with our U-bolts. What we want is this triangle-shaped piece kind of aiming towards the back of our RV. These two bolts right here are going to slip into these holes, and then you got these oblong holes, so you can kind of adjust it around and get it just right to fit with those front U-bolts. So we'll go ahead. I've already got 2 of them off. I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the other 2. This plate right here is super heavy. You're going to need to make sure that you kind of hold that up in place, because that needs to sit on top of this plate. So you may need to grab a second set of hands just to kind of get this situated up there. I'll pull that off. Sometimes it is also easier if you line up the set holes first with this plate, and then you can kind of push it back up on there. Kind of wiggle those U-bolts back in. As soon as you get a little bit of threads there, go ahead and throw one of your nuts on there to kind of hold it up in place, and then you can take a little bit of a breather and kind of reposition everything else and get it set. And you're also going to want to make sure that you put your washers back on, so I will have to pull that back off and redo it with a washer. Try and crisscross it too here. Do this back opposite side just so it kind of helps support it. Now that I got all 4 nuts and washers back on, I'm going to go ahead and run this up a little bit with my drill, and then we're going to torque these down. I'm trying to do it evenly too, that way this plate sits up nice and flush. So just a little bit at a time. Next, we're going to loosely install our end links. I'm going to use this lower hole. There is a upper hole too as well that you can use. It's basically just to give you a little bit of adjustability so that when your sway bar sits here, it can sit as level as possible. Go ahead, slip that up in. Like I said, we're just going to hand tighten that for right now, just because we may have to kind of adjust that. There are also 3 holes at the bottom that you can get a little bit more adjustment out of. To make things easier, I'm going to go ahead and put my bolt through my eyelet into our end links, and then we are going to kind of flip it up and hook on our brackets at the end. But kind of already held it up in place just to kind of get a good idea of where level is going to be, and I think right in the center is going to be good. So we'll stick that up in there. Pop our bolt through. I'm gonna just hand tighten on our nut and pop in the other side. For our next step, I'm gonna go ahead and dry fit this. Already kind of played around with it a little bit just to make sure that this is the correct hole for me. I'm gonna put on this little gasket here, pop on our bracket, and then when we slip this up, you can see, slide that down a little bit. You can kind of get a good gauge of how level this is and if you're going to have any issues, because you don't want this hitting your rear differential here. But we look all good, so we can pop these brackets back off and we're going to lube them up. So your kit's going to come with some lube. We'll go ahead and get a good glob of that. You'll definitely want to wear some gloves. We're going to really get this all over the inside here of our bushing. So I've gone ahead and I slipped our bushings back on. We'll put our bracket back in place on both sides. And then we can go ahead and we're going to grab our little gold bolts, our bronze bolts, and some washers. We're going to put one washer on our bolt and we'll drop it through. We're going to use our front hole right here, and then the third hole, which is kind of lining up with our U-bolt. Go ahead and throw a washer on. And then with our bracket, we're gonna go ahead and we'll put another washer on the bottom of that and then our nut. So go ahead and start sticking this up in place. You may have to kind of adjust your bracket a little bit to kind of line it up perfect. In place, go ahead, pop that on, and our nut. We'll just get that hand tight and go and do the same thing on the other side. We're gonna go ahead and just tighten this down till it's snug, and then we can torque it down. For both of our end link bolts, we're only going to tighten these down until they're snug. We don't want to pinch on that blue bushing too much, because then it's not going to allow it to actually kind of glide back and forth. And then if it's stuck like that, you're not going to really have it distribute that shock as your trailer starts to hit those road bumps on the highway. Now with all of our bolts torqued it down and our end link ones nice and snug, we're gonna go ahead and lower our motorhome, go for a little test drive, and then bring it back in, lift it back up, and recheck all of our bolts, make sure that everything's still torqued down exactly where it needs to be. I already went and kind of turned around to get up to here, and it definitely was a lot nicer. Just making those turns, I didn't feel like we were wobbling quite as bad. Well, I think that about does it for today's installation of the Roadmaster Rear Anti-Sway Bar here in our 2015 Tiffin Allegro Open Road Motorhome. My name's Kevin. Thanks for watching.